Joined as always by Digibro, and today we're talking about the final stretch of Cautious Hero.
Last 3 episodes. This is the first show that we will have completed on this channel.
What an auspicious occasion.
Started to finish, all here without any videos that were created for other channels or anything like that, as some of the other shows were. But yeah, we finished Cautious Hero, and I gotta say that for me, the last 3 episodes were not that amazing. But at the same time, I'm glad the show actually had an ending.
Yeah,
so there's that.
Yeah.
What did you think of these?
I think I basically am in a similar position. You know, they hit you heavy and hard. There was a surprising amount of exposition in some of these episodes, and they really hit you with those feels, which felt a little weird in a show that, sure, there's drama, but like is primarily a comedy show, and it felt a little bit tough to square how hard they went in on that.
Very hard.
Yeah.
Like, I watched this with May, who, in spite of not having watched most of the show, like, she just kind of sat in on random episodes, did end up crying during some of the final scenes just because of, like, you know, people are dying, it's dramatic, people are crying and stuff, but I was sitting there just kind of like, you know, like, oh, great. You know, I have to sit through all this gushy shit. Well,
that's true, because, like, I think that perhaps maybe the difference is the fact that we had seen the earlier episodes. We have a certain expectation set for us, and like it's kind of weird. The last 2 episodes, these things are happening. I don't know. They're dragging us along, or they're stringing us along a little bit, and then we get the big moments. But all the time, I'm like, okay, I'm ready for the next joke. I'm ready. I'm dying for it anytime. And like, it really never comes over the last 2 episodes, and that doesn't make
I would say the
bad.
last 3 episodes. The last 3 episodes are almost nonstop, just serious stuff. I mean, in episode, I would say the worst offender, and in my opinion, possibly the worst episode of the whole show, was episode 10, because of the fact that at the end of episode 9, we are introduced to the great hero who we learn he turns into a baby after making his attack. And this opens up a lot of questions, but the answer to those questions is simply the hero at one point tried to fight the Demon Lord, failed, and it's not really explained how he became a baby. It seems like just because his mind so instantly became subservient to this Demon Lord that it... I don't fucking know.
I don't think that's accurate.
Him not being able to leave the town. What exactly happened? Did you get that?
I believe that I understand, because it was quite clear that the Grandmaster is lamenting the War Master. He's lamenting his old age. He feels bad about it. Like, he always wanted to be a hero. He's the king of the realm, in addition to War Master. He wanted to defeat the evil overlord and all that stuff. But as he's getting old, he's getting frustrated that he didn't have a chance to do it. And so in his final charge recently, before the hero showed up in the world to go and slay the Demon Lord, while on that journey, he became enchanted by the notion that the Demon Lord would be able to grant him immortality, and he just gave up his entire life because he wanted to keep living and want to be a hero. So he just became, like, the whole baby thing is the deal he made with the devil in order to
is that what's okay?
Yes. And I actually like that device quite a bit. It makes him, so this is how he became a bad guy. He sold his soul in order to keep the power he had when he was young. It's a good trope for, like, old characters like this who are really powerful, and we get that cool fight of him in his young form. And go on.
But what's the deal with him turning into a baby? Like, why exactly does he become a baby?
Well, see, I like that, in that it seems to be, it's just like a consequence of this transformation process he's currently undergoing to, like, be young and beautiful forever. He's experiencing, like, the side effect of just turning into a baby, because that's the curse, or that's, like, the spell working its way, trying to perfect itself, which we finally see in episode 10 when he is just, like, a normal, like, his perfect version of himself. I mean, honestly, I don't remember exactly why I thought that, but I remember thinking that very clearly. And
I remember having the impression, I mean, you could be completely right. To me, it had seemed like he went to confront the Demon Lord and just, like, was mind shocked by realizing he couldn't win, and that somehow he reverted into a baby and decided, I don't know. I was very confused about that. I mean, a lot of plot details get thrown at you very quickly in this episode, where we basically, I mean, again, we learn everything there is to learn about this character in this episode. He also dies.
Yep.
It's a whole arc, like a whole character arc in this one episode for this guy who spends most of that time just like dumping exposition of why he has done this, why he's made this change. Before getting killed. And then you've got the blue-haired girl, his daughter, who has, like, her emotional scene with her dad. I never cared about her in the first place. I don't care about her dad. I really didn't need to see an emotional scene between them. I truly could not have cared less, and I was just like, why is this taking itself so seriously all of a sudden?
I mean, you're right about that, but at the very least, like, that scene had, like she's, I mean, understandably, she's like, no, this is not my father, he sold himself to the demon, he's a demon, like, I reject him, but, like, he's dying, because Seiya beat him or whatever, you know, the curse is going away, whatever, and Seiya is, like, slapping her, which is a callback to, like, the previous scene where he was slapping her, which, yeah, okay, kind of funny, and then, like, she's got, like, her big, goofy anime cheeks, because she's been slapped and it's puffy. And like, while this dramatic, like, at least there's some comedy going on there that I appreciate.
I guess. I mean, it's a callback.
I'm not saying it's a
joke,
masterful,
and
but
it's.
Yeah.
I just overall was like, if I was gonna spend any time with this old man character, I would have liked to spend more of it, you know? And I really felt like these last 3 episodes, the word that charges through my brain is rushed. It just felt very, like, everything wrapped up really fucking quick. And, like, we were speculating that they would probably finish this arc by season's end. We were like, they'll probably beat the Demon Lord. At the rate things have gone so far, that seems likely to happen. But I don't think there was actually space to make that happen the way that they decided to make it happen in these last 3 episodes. Like, to actually tell the story that the novels assumably tell, seemingly had to cram a lot in. And, like, I don't know where exactly each volume starts and ends with this series, but I remember that, like, at the end of the last episode, it felt like we were, like, starting a new arc, and then episode 10 feels like an entire arc in one episode.
That's true.
That is mostly delivered through exposition. And I mean, the same thing happens in the very next episode in 11, where when we finally learn Seiya's backstory and everything, I was expecting a whole arc of just his backstory, you know? Like, there could be so much to go into, but instead, they deliberately made it, like, as simple as possible to an extent where it's, like, it felt like it should be funny, right? Like, it should be funny that Seiya's old personality was just wing it, let's run in, let's have a good time.
There were no jokes. Like, not one joke about that.
No.
It was just matter of fact.
I think that the idea was that they wanted to present this as, like, a more typical isekai story where he goes on the adventure, he falls in love, he does all those things, and, like, there's moments that are kind of meant to be funny, but overall it's meant to be dark. It's meant to be, like, dark and sad and tragic, and it goes really far in that direction. But, like, in order to explain all of it away, we have to literally just sit there and have, like, the old lady tell us everything about the plot in this one
Dude, that
go.
was the worst part of the entire show for me, just sitting there as just line after line telling us what happened. I was in agony.
And so much of it is stuff that we should have already known. I mean, like,
that was the thing. It was so much wasted time on stuff that we had inferred was very clear, and then they felt the need to reiterate.
Or even stuff that wasn't even trying to be hidden in the first place. Like, the idea that he was secret, like, they presented almost like a twist, that he cared about you guys all along.
Yes.
That's why he stopped to save you from that guy, is because he cared about you. And it's like, well, yeah, that was obvious. There was no other reason he would have done it.
I hated that. That was probably the most annoying thing in the entire show, where we're just told by this old character how great a hero our guy is. Despite the actions, and, like, let me form my own fucking opinion of the fucking character. Jesus Christ.
And her opinion is the same as mine already was, and I didn't get how the other characters were surprised in any way. It's like, yeah, I thought that's why you were following him, was because he saved each of you instead of doing what would have got him closer to the final boss. We all knew this.
Very true.
We all knew that this was the whole idea from the start, and, like, so, again, all that being presented as revelations was very weird, and it just felt like it was all trying to build up, like, us to, like, remind us how good of a guy he is, so we all care about him, so that when he makes a heroic sacrifice, we'll be, like, sad, but it was just so, like, it's so over the top to suddenly reveal, and I mean, again, we all knew that the other goddess was going to have been the goddess for Seiya in some previous run that they did on some other world. The unexpected twist was that our goddess, Ristarte, was in fact also a part of his party. She was like his girlfriend. Seemingly she was pregnant with his child.
That's correct,
when she got...
Digi. That's fucking correct. Like, that takes it to a whole nother fucking level, first of all. But, Jesus Christ.
In terms of the darkness that this show goes for, it ratchets up pretty hard. And, just thinking about that right now, like, throughout this whole show, I've kept comparing it to the light novel that I'm working on, because both of them kind of break meta in similar ways. But, like, with this show, when it does decide to go dark, I liked it for the most part because of the fact that this is supposed to be, like, a level S world, and it's, like, justified that our hero is so cautious. But, like, this almost feels like they're trying to say that the show was never a comedy. That like it was
felt
always
that way a little bit.
It was always completely serious because everything he was doing was completely justified by the narrative. So it's like almost the twist is this was never just funny, him being ridiculous. He always had a purpose. There was always like a real deep reason for all of this.
And there's nothing wrong with diving into that to a degree, but you shouldn't lose the amount of humor that was lost, I think, in the narrative in doing so. So
it just stops being funny. The show entirely stops being funny. It becomes a drama. It becomes about him sincerely having to save the world, which is all I'm fine with all that. Like, I don't mind that the series had this, there was always a serious undercurrent. It was always apparent that there was more to it. But to go in on such a, like, really dramatic ending where we learned that, Ristarte used to be his girlfriend who was pregnant with his child, and now she's, like, the reborn version, and he has to use, like, these multiple levels of sacrificing himself, and, like, everybody's convinced. And first of all, the mere structure of episode 12 makes it very obvious the main character's not dead. Like, if you're gonna leave, like, if you're gonna have the final boss battle start at the very beginning of the episode and then have the character be supposedly dead, like, halfway through,
like 8
and then
minutes in, I was looking at the clock as it was going. It was
episode felt so long because it didn't just goes on forever and ever, and I'm just waiting for the other shoe to drop.
I felt like most of the episode was watching Ristarte just be sad and walk around after he's dead forever. But
I don't know if that was all to sell me. Like, did they want me to really believe he was dead? Is that what they were going for? Or is it more that they just want us to, like, really drink in the emotional gravity of if he had died, like, have the characters respond as though that had really happened so that it doesn't feel completely delegitimized when he comes back to life? But I didn't fall for it. Like, the whole time I'm just like, all right, when's he going to come back? Because, first of all, our two side characters, the little boy and girl, Edudu and Mash, have been almost completely worthless throughout the whole show. And that's partly the joke, but, like, I have to imagine there was supposed to be more for them to do in the long term. Obviously, there's a lot of open ends now that we know Ristarte used to be his girlfriend who was pregnant with his child. Is that going to affect how they interact in the future? Because in this episode, he just goes right back to being, like, an asshole. At least, when he first comes back to life, before he comes back again. But, like, it kind of almost was meant to imply that, like, in spite of all we've learned, their relationship will be the same in the future as it's been throughout the show.
It seems to be.
But, like, you and I had speculated, like, with them already reaching the level of, like, fighting the gods, basically, then the only way for this show to get crazier would be for them to go to other worlds and save other planets, something even bigger. And that's exactly how it ends. They're going to an SS-ranked world, which I believe is the world that he failed on in the first place,
That's correct.
So now they got to go, which is a great idea, have them go save the world he failed on. Now it's even harder than the one he just beats. Who knows what kind of new crazy shit will have to happen there. But, like, I really expected all of that to come even earlier. I thought we would subvert even the way that the Demon Lord was defeated in the first place. I thought that we would have, that the ending of the show, like, I thought the ending would be that opening up to the next scale, Instead, it's kind of just closing this chapter and opening a new one, almost as if this was just a new show, a new arc, And so, again, like, because of the fact that I already expected the show to move on. I did not expect this arc to be the end. I did not expect this to be the final boss. I did not expect the hero to die. I continued to not expect any of those things until the episode was over, when all of my suspicions were confirmed.
This is one of the problems you have when you go from a lighthearted tone to a very serious one. We don't go along with it. We still feel like, oh, well, obviously this is going to resolve in a lighthearted way because that's the kind of series this is. So you can go the opposite way sometimes and make it work, but they didn't make the transition in a very elegant way that, I don't know, managed to capture the tone I think they wanted.
It wasn't convincing. And I think part of that is that when you're watching a parody show and it suddenly starts playing the tropes straight, you have to expect that is a subversion in itself, you know? Like,
of course.
Why else would we be doing all this? So it just felt like all this moping and crying and trying to be dramatic, and I just couldn't take it seriously because I'm like, I know he's not dead.
Yeah.
None of this is going to matter at all. None of it.
It's true.
None of this will affect the future storyline. You might as well have not even had him die in the first place, you know? I don't see what it added to have all that moping around.
Temporary drama for like half of one episode is what it added. That didn't fool either of us.
And yet, in spite of the fact that there's so much time given to that afterward section, why couldn't more of that been used to maybe establish the Demon Lord as even a character?
We spend no time on him whatsoever.
We meet him and he's dead. We meet him as he's like being killed, basically, as it's finishing off. Which I guess that's funny in some way, but it just felt anticlimactic.
Well, let's compare. Because I was gonna say that like these last couple episodes felt less satisfying on the main strengths of the series because like the best parts of the series up to this point have been during these moments where the grand reveal that he's way more powerful is great, but even aside from that, it's been like when he was fighting against like what's it called, just the Reaper, like the Reaper showing up and like breaking the meta wide open and being something far beyond our understanding, having to use like these crazy outside the box meta techniques in order to counter it. Right. And what made that fun was that we didn't expect it. But everything about the last couple episodes are exactly what we expect. He uses the technique we know is there, and
he has to use it twice.
Oh wow, so what a twist. What a fucking twist.
I mean, it's like at that point, boring. I mean, we've established this as like the most powerful move that we know of so far. But wouldn't you expect then to the ending be that we reveal
it should have failed, and he has to find something else, like even more mind-blowing. I don't care that it's established as the most powerful thing that a goddess can do. He should fucking, I don't know, it's to me it seems like there is like a power that can be tapped into that's like beyond this destruction thing, and it's, I don't know, like these like orders or whatever. I don't know that like are it doesn't matter. My point is just that when expectations are set in like a fairly lighthearted comedy action series like this, I feel the way that you're supposed to satisfy us as the viewer is by subverting our expectations, and that like didn't happen at all, which is just why it felt was a little like, oh, that's too bad. Just exactly what they said was going to happen.
I mean, it kind of subverted my expectations in that it didn't, you know, that it was like so direct that I'm sitting there thinking, okay, well, this is okay. So episode 10, you've got the old guy. He's talking to Ristarte. He pulls out his big sword, and immediately my thought is, all right, well, Seiya's probably nearby. Like, he's the cautious hero. Why would he leave the goddess by herself? Why would he leave her in a situation where she's with somebody he doesn't know he can trust? Obviously, he's got to be nearby. And this is another scenario where we spend a lot of time building up the sort of dramatic tension as Ristarte's like, oh no, I'm going to die. I fucking wanted to see him one last time and make up with him. And then he finally comes to rescue.
Well, that scene, by the way, while we're on that scene, I appreciate and enjoyed the build-up of, okay, this character's mysterious, Ristarte's hanging out with him by herself, that's fine, and then he starts going into the backstory of, like, why goddesses are immortal. Now, that's interesting. Yeah. This is, okay, that's relevant. Why is Seiya immortal? It's this thing, there's, like, a room with their souls are kept there. Okay, fine, cool, whatever. And he's just like, and the point of this is to reveal, by the way, I have a weapon that will actually kill goddesses and him. Like, this chains of destruction or whatever it was. This thing exists, so, like, boom, I've got it. And now I'm going to kill you. Okay, now there is tension. That's good, because it hadn't existed basically any time until this point. But now it does. Great. But then, I mean, as you said, he just kind of keeps going on and on about stuff that...
I mean, like, when they fight, I don't remember there being anything particularly, like, wow about the fight either. Like, I distinctly remember how in the second arc when he fought the second main bad guy, like, he had to come up with this really, like, crazy, like you said, outside the box thinking in order to win.
Yeah, with like, the immunities to powers and elemental attacks. That was good stuff. That was some of my favorite in the series.
And, like, granted, most of what has happened has been ass pulls. It's usually, like, in the middle of a fight, we now learn what was going on. You know, like, we as viewers weren't really given the ability to, like, predict how these fights would end most of the time. But, like, with this fight, there just wasn't any, like, special reveal. There was nothing, like, super cautious that he had done to
thing
prepare.
About it,
other than, like, I guess the armbands he had on that are just, like, the DBZ joke.
Right,
you know?
right, which was fine.
He's wearing a bunch of heavy stuff. Yeah.
Well, like, what was disappointing about that was, look, you can do this one time in the series, and this was the time, so I didn't hate this fight that much, but it shouldn't have been done again with, like, the Demon Lord, which was too bad. But, like, so you're allowed to have the one fight where things are now serious, because it's after this fight, after he's, like, unlocked all his limiters or whatever, he's used his most high-level techniques, where it's revealed that he was being hasted by Elulu the whole time, and he had, for a while now, had max level and stats, so he cannot get more powerful. That's fine. You can do that reveal once. Now, I'm beyond that, and I want to see my expectations subverted, because that's what makes the series fun, and didn't really happen in the ending. So, you know, one time worked, but it's just I needed more. I needed more of the fun stuff in the finale.
All I'm thinking about is, like, in that finale when you've got to reintroduce every single god character who'd ever showed up and show how every single character is reacting to the end of the story and to Seiya's death. And it's just like, I could have done with none of that and 100% of that time being given to flesh out the old man as a character so he doesn't just show up and then die, have anything for blue-haired girl to do if I'm supposed to care about her at all, which I didn't ever. You know, anything for the kids to do in the finale, which they don't really do anything. You know, Ristarte has a big moment that she heals him. She you know, overuses, like, forbidden god powers essentially, and that's why she's going to be punished with having to, you know, continue on her journey. But and with now, like, she's even less powerful when she helps him on the next run, which is an interesting limitation to put in place. But, you know, aside from her having that big moment, it just felt like there was so much more that could have been done and should have been done and had been done throughout the show. Like, the last couple villains are not as memorable as the earlier villains. They don't have as interesting of fights. There's almost no humor in these last 3 episodes. I don't remember laughing at anything.
Me neither. Me neither.
It was mostly dramatic, and most of that drama was around this idea that Seiya would die, which he doesn't. And it was obvious he wouldn't. So people being worried that he was going to die didn't affect me, and people being upset that he did die didn't affect me. So overall, I just looked at these 3 episodes like, okay, on the one hand, glad the show actually has a conclusion.
Yeah.
I'm glad they even tried to wrap up all these plot points. Most of it makes sense on some level, but was I satisfied? No. I mostly was just kind of like, oh, well, I guess it's over.
This is a painful thing to say about a series that I really did enjoy, honestly, until, like, these 3, we just went off a cliff in terms of, like, my interest in the series with these last 3. It was still enjoyable, but compared to, I'd really been liking it up to that point. This has definitely lowered the score a couple of points for me overall. And one of the reasons for that is, like, I'm into the show, and I want to talk more about the final battle and talk about the mechanics of it, but, like, I'm into the show for the interesting, like, meta things that, like, a character can do in order to figure out, like, how to get out of incredible, crazy situations that have, like, some video game logic attached to them, some of this, like, higher level goddess meta stuff going on. That's a lot of fun, and I really enjoyed it. Okay, but considering how things resolved, I am now put in the terrifying position of thinking, like, if I was reading the light novels, for example, because we don't know if there will be more anime or not of this, but the story could continue into a further season where they go on to the next world or whatever, where it's more difficult and they have less power, and, like, Seiya's been back to start. Like, So, like, the adventure will continue, but I'm now terrified that the author has really used up all his best material because I just wasn't impressed by the ending of the story, and I just am thinking now, like, oh no, like, if this goes, I just think it's just gonna be, like, worse versions of what we've already seen, and that, like so many series, they put their best ideas out at the very beginning, and then they, like, try to get successful, and then they'll keep it going as long as they can, and I feel like the guy's kind of treading water. So, like, I'm curious what people who've read the visual novel, assuming that it goes beyond this, would say as to, like, if the quality stays good, if he continues to do interesting stuff with these mechanics. Because I, as a reader, would be like, oh, I would probably just check out at this point because I'm concerned.
With the way that this season ended, it's surprising to me that the story even continues. Because, again, like, when we were predicting that this would go beyond this one arc, we were expecting it to reach, like, a whole new plane of power. Like, I was really expecting there to be something higher up than the goddesses that we were going to discover. But maybe that will eventually.
Well, perhaps.
But, like, I thought that this arc would just sort of smoothly transition into the next one, that it wouldn't be such a, like, hard end. And, like, seeing it end hard like that, it's kind of like, well, we now know Seiya's backstory and what brought him here. We've kind of seen him develop a little bit, so it doesn't really feel like there's anything new to do with him or Ristarte or anybody else. So yeah, like you said, I mean, unless the new story had just, like, a way more interesting plot and characters, which is not impossible. At that point, it would basically be like he started a new book almost, you know. But,
right.
I'm skeptical as well, especially seeing how this ended. But
I don't want to be an asshole about it because there was a lot of good here. I just feel like the ideas got thinner as they went, and that's just that doesn't bode well for, like, the future of these things. At the beginning, it was great, had a lot of great stuff, but what can I say? That's how I feel.
Well, some of the things that were interesting in the finale, I mean, I do. Even though I don't like that his final battle was just to use the Valkyrie Gate twice. You know, the fact that she, like, healed him the first time, but then the bad guy came back out, and so he had to use it a second time, definitely killing him, except it turns out that it doesn't definitely kill him because the second gate ate the first gate to such a degree that the effects of the bad guy are no longer there either. The effects of Chain of Destruction or whatever. So looking at that all together, I can say, okay, that's, I guess, a clever little twist back and forth. But like you said, it doesn't really bring the meta anywhere.
The gravitas of that Reaper enemy was so much higher and more interesting and engaging and, like, crazy with the blood sacrifice that guy did to sacrifice his whole fucking family and himself to some of this, like, world-breaking monster that went to the goddess realm and fucking kicked every goddess's ass except the most powerful one with their, like, destruction magic hacks. Like, oh my god, so sick. Whereas compared to that, our final boss just has the incredibly lower ability of may permanently kill the main character. May permanently kill some. Like, to me, as a normal reader of many kinds of series, the stakes are so much lower in that final battle than stuff we've already experienced in this fucking story.
Why not have the evil villain,
have him
like,
kill all the gods?
World,
he should have broken into that time room and said, my hand is on every single one of these goddess souls. I will destroy them all. And Seiya should have figured out some fucking hacks, badass way to win.
That moment when it is implied that like goddesses can be killed permanently. I mean, that should have been the moment that was like.
That's it.
Right. It should have been massively shocking, a huge escalation. It should have put everybody in danger. Instead, it mostly exists as a setup to this gimmick of how Ristarte came back and also how our main character will come back.
Because that's what we've been conditioned to expect from the series. Continual escalation of these abilities and of these effects to, like, absurd, delighting, expectation-defying heights. But we just didn't like, the height that the show expects us to care about more than anything else is the life of our main character and possibly Ristarte. And yes, I care about that, but no, not even close to as much as, like, every goddess or, like, every world out there. That's where we should have been, and we didn't get there, so it just felt disappointing.
Yeah. I think I wholly agree. Well, do you have anything else you want to say about these last 3 episodes? Anything particular? Deep dives?
I suppose the only thing I found particularly noteworthy that I don't feel I've said enough was, like, it's very unfortunate that we spend a lot of time, we spend like an episode or 2 with each of the generals up to the end. Like episode 9 or whatever, we see one of the generals just get instantly wiped, like the second he's revealed by the general guy. Okay, that's fine. Or by the War Master. I can handle one of those. It was just very disappointing that we don't get any characterization of the Demon Lord. You know who was a better character than the Demon Lord? By magnitudes. I already mentioned it. That dwarf guy who killed himself and his whole family to summon this epic Hax Reaper. Like, so fucking cool. That boy is skin
literally
in the game.
Way more memorable, and he was on screen for even less time.
You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. And I will not forget that character, that moment. And that was like that was probably the best moment in terms of like the fighting or whatever of the series. And there was other great comedic moments, blah, blah, blah. But the Demon Lord left so little impression, and that's a mistake. Like, oh my God, he's so strong. He's like fighting his way out of the gate of Valhalla. Oh my God. And then Seiya just won anyway.
It's just that they went the route of making him as generic as possible, and I didn't get
It was a mistake.
Like,
this is an S-ranked world, goddammit. It's supposed to be different. His generals were better.
One of my thoughts as we were going through the show was like, what if it turns out that he too is like somebody who used to be a hero, or
should have been something.
Turns
like
out
that.
just anything, any number of things that could have made him interesting or memorable.
What
right
if his plan? Okay, here's
totally
just,
not.
Here's another pitch. You know how people die and they get reincarnated as gods? Maybe this Demon Lord had some brilliant plan that involves the meta. That's like, if you kill me, Seiya, I will be reborn like as a god, and I will take over like the god realm because I'm evil. And like this is kind of like what the Emperor did in Final Fantasy II. He died, and then he took over heaven and hell at the same time. Like, I'm just saying, there were so many things that you could potentially fuck with, and to have it just be like, all we deal with is, wow, he's really, really strong. I better use that one ultimate technique that's forbidden. That was set up. Do not defy expectations. Ristarte gets her cool little moment of, going Super Saiyan with her healing power. Those are good. But for what I've been conditioned to expect from the show, disappointing. I mean, there's only so many ways I can say it didn't live up to what I was hoping for at the end, and that's just too dang bad.
Yeah. One more thing I wanted to note is that, so I had forgotten to mention this in the last batch of episodes, that they introduced him saying, gonna be okay, instead of ready perfectly. And it turns out that this was his old catchphrase back when he didn't give a fuck and ran into everything.
I like that bit. That was funny that was the case.
And I'll also say, like, so for me personally, like, if I think about the way I actually play JRPGs, I play more like that. Of like, just winging it, not going in prepared, going in underleveled, because obviously death doesn't matter in a video game, Right. So if you die a couple times and then you have to go grind, it's no big deal. So it felt more like, a real casual adventure. Obviously, he fucks the cute girl and gets her pregnant, which is just like a random, totally unnecessary detail. I thought that was going to come up in some way, that maybe Ristarte was actually like the soul of the child, or
I thought so
that
too.
it was because she was pregnant that she could come back to life or something.
How funny would it have
Ristarte.
Restart, of course. How epically memeable would it have fucking been if it turns out that, like, yes, she is the soul of the child. So, like, now we can have a big laugh about how, it now makes sense why Seiya has been, like, rejecting her, even subconsciously. It's his fucking daughter or whatever. And it would be like a joke that, like, oh, I'm attracted to my dad. That's fucked up. But now, I don't know, something like that. Something. But we just rushed past these fucking details. Yeah.
Maybe the baby's soul will come up later in the books. I wouldn't be surprised. Like,
Dude,
it just seems like something you would not mention if it wasn't relevant.
I can't believe how little Ristarte's character seemed affected by these revelations. Like, sure, she is sad and, like, cries. That's nothing. Where's the trauma?
Doesn't say anything about the baby.
No, nothing.
Nothing about that. But, yeah, it's... Again, well, it's a comedy show. So, like, even seeing it go as dark as, oh, his fucking pregnant girlfriend died, it's like, what the fuck, Like, which is funny because I did the same thing in my book where one of the main character's suicide caused the bad guy's pregnant wife to die. But that is revealed in, like, a moment where it's, completely subverting the nature of the story up to that point. This one is just like, here's another random little, like, way dark detail, which the show has a bunch of, like, whoa, what the fuck? That's weirdly dark, you know? But this one was just like, was there a reason that she had to be pregnant? Other than, I guess it's just a subtle way of telling us they fucked.
I was thinking that there might be some weird thing about, like, their souls combined to make Ristarte in some weird way. Unless, of course, you're a hard, you're not a soul. You don't have a soul till you're born 9 months after conception. Yeah. I mean, it's up to the individual,
all around these last few episodes just had a lot of stuff where a lot of new information was presented that could have had something done with it, but it all just, like, ran at you so quick. Like, I think about probably the best, like, paced arc of the show was the one with when he went to the undead city. And, like, we very slowly established the different mechanics, and he had funny ways of using them, pouring stuff on a priest's head and all that. Like, that kind of stuff, that was, like, the show at its best. And in these episodes, it's, like, there's no setup for anything. It's just
Seiya himself was barely even in these episodes, except as, like, doing the fight that we already knew he was going to do. So we didn't get any, like, funny moments with him. Was Ristarte, and she's funny, but she's got to bounce off of him, and like Mash and Elalu are totally uninteresting.
Just crying the whole time, just fucking being dumb babies.
To be fully charitable, I think that, like, if you stretched out these episodes, if you made these 3 episodes into, like, 6 or maybe even 5, I don't know, like, and in that space we were able to add more jokes and, like, I don't know, more evenly pace out the exposition dumps, or just make it more satisfying and keep the tone lighthearted in addition to getting, like, you could have these elements. It's all about how you do it. And you could definitely have all these elements. And I mean, I really think they needed more meta-defying, like, interesting, funny things that happen that we've been conditioned to expect.
I will say there was one comedic scene in these 3 episodes that I finally remembered, which is when they go to the bathing suit store. Oh, yeah. And she argues with the manager about, like, who's trying to sell her, like, a one-breasted bra or no-pants swimsuit. And it's a fairly funny scene. It has some good moments. It mostly serves to establish that Ristarte has gone, like, all in on, like, I'm gonna fuck that guy no matter what.
That's where there should have been a payoff to it. There should have been some joke subverting her attraction to him or something.
She does
like
at one point say, I wanted to show you bathing suits. Like when she's, like, crying over his body. I wanted to show you bathing suits at the hot spring. I thought that was a okay callback moment.
I didn't mind some of the details, but, like, I thought that bathing suit shop was, like, so long, and we did not need to. That could have been half as long. We could have gotten everything we needed from it,
and it didn't set up anything relevant to what's actually happening in the episode.
No,
so again,
it did not.
Feels like a weird way to spend your time as opposed to the things that could have been spent on.
You don't want to go.
These 3 episodes were fucking weird, man. I mean, and I've had problems with the show all the way through. I've always thought it was, like, stumbled over itself to get anywhere. I definitely thought that even if the endings of arcs were usually fun, they were, again, a lot of ass pulls. But, like, this one really just, it dragged, man. Like, I can't suddenly have a show go serious on me when the characters aren't serious, when they are comedy characters without enough, dimension to really be taken seriously. Like, Ristarte, she's always just been a comic relief character. There's no depth to her personality. She's just in love with Seiya, and so, like, watching her get mopey and cry all this way through, it's like, oh, why Ristarte? Why am I watching this comedy character cry about shit?
Even learning her backstory, how in any way does that change, like, who Ristarte is or what she does? She's still just attracted to him, and that's fine. Yeah. But now they're, like, destined lovers. I don't care about that. I don't give a shit about that. Just entertain me with clever video game tricks and meta shit, and also be funny along the way and win. That's what I want, and it just didn't have enough these last couple episodes. It's too bad.
So, I mean, overall for me, I would put Cautious Hero. My final score would be like a light to decent 6. It could have been a 7 if the ending had been great. I was always kind of, teetering on, like, the 6 to 7 edge. The show had some legitimately funny moments, some really great scenes, some great lines. All throughout, I was bored here and there, but the ending really was, like, again, I don't even think it's, like, a terrible ending, just because it actually resolves. All the questions are answered. All the plot points are resolved for the most part. It's just, like, it's so underwhelming compared to even what you could imagine very easily,
right up to these episodes for me. I mean, I don't know. Looking back on it, it's kind of a bad sign that like one of the generals was so quickly dispatched, and like that kind of hints like, oh no, we're really rushing things along now. That's a little concerning looking back at it now, in episode 9. But like, I really enjoyed many of these episodes. I thought they were clever. I thought they were interesting. And, like, that's what I came to the show for. And funny. We talked about many of the incredibly hilarious moments, like Seiya being all fucked up because he lost, like, one tiny sliver of his MP bar or whatever. Hilarious. Right. Love it. Great. Keep doing things like that. And have him win fights in unique, interesting ways. Like, up to... I feel like I probably would have gone with, like a mid-8. Probably, like, a middling 8 until these episodes, but these really did a number on it. And I think it really plummeted all the way down to like a strong 6. I can't give it a 7 after these episodes. It's asking too much, I think. So I'm pretty much in the same place as you. But like the changing of the tone, it wasn't properly balanced. And the lack of, like, satisfying new things led it to be, like, I don't know, like, the ending of Naruto is all over the place, but there's, like, one moment at the end of Naruto where Naruto does the sexy jutsu on, like, the girl who came out of nowhere. And, like, that one moment in, like, the sea of the end of Naruto that I, like, didn't really like very much had so much soul and purpose that it, like, made my opinion of Naruto absolutely jump up, like, several points because I loved that joke so much. In a series that isn't even particularly comedic, you know, for most of its runtime. Yeah. But, like, in something like this, there was no joke at the end. There was just the emotive beating down in our heads about, aren't you sad Seiya's dead? And I'm like, I know he's not dead. Look how sad Ristarte is. Be depressed. You know, feel bad for her. I know he's coming back at the end of this fucking thing. I know you guys are going to work it out. The chains of destruction didn't affect him or whatever. Okay, great. And then they reveal it like I'm supposed to be surprised by that being the case. And it's just like, what the fuck? It almost feels like when I see an ending like this, I feel like I have overestimated the intelligence of the author up to this point. And
I know what you mean.
And it makes me feel bad for enjoying it as much as I have. Like, oh no, is this not as clever as how forget that. I really enjoyed everything. I don't regret any of that. But,
I mean, there's a sad part of this, too, where, like, part of me, because the author has shown some intelligence and usually reworks things back in that he's set up, I feel like there's a strong case to be... I would definitely expect a lot of this stuff to be expanded on in the next season. I would doubt that he's totally out of ideas. I would doubt that he didn't have any sense of where he wanted to go with it once he did shake it up.
I like the idea of going to save the world that they had fucked up. That's a cool idea. Yeah. With more difficulties. But what will they do once they're there is the question.
It's just a question of, like, first of all, I have no reason to believe this anime will ever get another season. I will definitely never read the light novels or the manga.
Yeah.
So it's like, even if I could try to have, like, whether or not I have faith in the idea that the next season would be good really doesn't change anything about this season.
You know, if there's a manga, I might go read the manga because I am curious what the fuck
the manga has only just recently sort of started.
Oh, really?
So I don't think it's even as far as the anime is at this point. But
fair enough. I'll keep an eye out for it. I want to know what happens later, so maybe I don't know, I'm not going to read the wiki, but I'll look for the manga when that gets made or whatever and see.
By all means, if anybody knows, tell us about it in the comments.
I would be delighted to hear what people think if they know.
Yeah. All right, well, that probably does it for this Cantent. It's unfortunate the first show we completed ended on a downer note, but we're going to be finishing B-Stars next.
Right.
Probably bring back Tom for that. We've got... well, that's the next thing we're going to do, and I don't know what's after that, because that'll be next year. Holy fuck.
Indeed.
We were on a bit of a hiatus because of the fact that we both had holidays to, attend to back-to-back.
It was
we both traveled.
It was a busy time.
And also I've been catching up on, like, hundreds of rants. But Cantent should be back on schedule going into the new year. We're excited. You should be excited. We'll probably fucking figure out like exactly what we're going to do with the future of this channel as soon as the new year begins, I would think.
We'll make sure you're updated. And but Digi, let me just ask you one question. Would you recommend Cautious Hero to the folks, to the viewers at home?
I mean, I wouldn't. I dropped it after the first episode on my original viewing. I only watched it because it was very popular, and I knew we could talk about it on Cantent, and I thought you would like it more than me because I knew you'd relate to the characters.
Which is true.
It was better than I expected. The first episode, I really was feeling like this is like a strong 5 to a light 6. It bounced around, but it pretty much ended up right where it started. So ultimately, I would say if you watch the first episode and you like it and you feel like, wow, I can't wait to see where the show's going to go, well, why are we even doing this? Everybody will have watched it if they're watching these videos. We don't need to recommend this show.
I guess you're right. I guess I just want to say, as a finishing thought on it, I just want to say, I don't want to be ungrateful because I had a great time. I did like it a lot. So I do recommend this series, but like people, they just not as like the best thing ever. It's a good show. Yeah. If you've got a hole in your heart for 12 episodes of an enjoyable anime that's funny and has good action, it's a good choice.
It's memorable enough that it's probably worth watching just to remember that it existed.
I will not forget
Cautious Hero.
Some of the highlights. They will stick with me, I think. So so that's what I want to say. Anyway, that's it for content, everybody. I guess we'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.